The news reached him first as a whisper, then as a growing cacophony of fear and condemnation. A figure, eerily familiar yet subtly twisted, was seen on screens and in the streets, wielding magnetic power with a brutal, uncompromising fury. He called himself Magneto, but it wasn't him. Not the Magneto who, in recent times, had begun to walk a path of tempered conviction rather than outright war. This imposter was a ghost from his past, a distorted echo amplified by a cruel mirror. This was Joseph, a clone, a younger, more volatile version of Erik Lehnsherr, imbued with all the raw power and none of the hard-won wisdom, the painful evolution. He emerged into the world not just as a doppelganger, but as a deliberate saboteur, intent on reigniting the very terror that the true Magneto had spent years trying to quell, often with his own difficult, evolving methods. Joseph's mission was clear: to tarnish Magneto's name, to remind humanity and mutant kind alike of the tyrant he once was, or was perceived to be. He embraced the caricature, the fear-mongering rhetoric, the very extremes that Erik had grappled with, sometimes succumbed to, but ultimately sought to move beyond. Joseph was Magneto unburdened by conscience, unscarred by the weight of leadership, and unchastened by past mistakes. He was the specter of what Magneto could have remained, perhaps, had he never truly faced himself. For Erik, the emergence of Joseph was not merely a threat to his reputation, it was an existential crisis. Imagine seeing your worst self, your most feared potential, parading in your skin, committing atrocities in your name. It forces a profound introspection. Was this what humanity truly saw when they looked at him, despite his attempts at change? Was this the legacy he was leaving? Joseph's actions were grotesque caricatures of Magneto's earlier, more radical days. Where Magneto might have once issued stern warnings, Joseph unleashed devastating, indiscriminate attacks. Where Magneto had once sought to forge a mutant nation, Joseph simply sought to enforce mutant supremacy through fear. He was the nightmare version of the dream, a horrifying reflection that pulled Erik back into the very conflict he sought to transcend. And this is where the complexity truly deepens. Joseph's attempts to drown Magneto's evolving identity in a tide of old fears inadvertently solidified the original Magneto's resolve. It was a bizarre, almost paradoxical catalyst. By embodying the very darkness Erik was trying to leave behind, Joseph inadvertently illuminated the path forward for the true Master of Magnetism. Think of it as a dark room. You're navigating by touch, making slow, uncertain progress. Then a sudden, blinding flash of light reveals every sharp edge, every hidden obstacle, but also the distant door. Joseph was that blinding, disorienting flash. His reckless, violent acts forced Magneto to confront with stark clarity what he truly stood for. He had to draw a line, not just for the world, but for himself. He had to declare unequivocally, "That is not me. That is not my way. Not anymore." This challenge forced Erik to articulate his true ideals, not just in concept, but through direct action against his own twisted reflection. He wasn't fighting an external enemy. He was fighting a living, breathing accusation of his past self. It was a battle for his very identity. In confronting Joseph, Magneto was, in a profound sense, confronting the unexamined corners of his own soul. He had to define what Magneto was by clearly stating what Magneto wasn't. The conflict reached its head, as most deeply personal struggles do, with a confrontation. Joseph, convinced of his rightful claim, was a force of raw, unbridled power. But Magneto, grounded in experience, regret, and a newfound clarity, fought with a purpose that transcended mere brute force. He fought for the redemption of his name, for the hope of a different future, and for the possibility of something more than just endless cycles of fear and retaliation. While Joseph's story ultimately concluded, his impact on Magneto was indelible. The encounters highlighted the multifaceted nature of Erik Lehnsherr's identity. He wasn't just the villain, or the hero, or the revolutionary. He was all of them, and none of them simultaneously. He was a man shaped by trauma, driven by conviction, and constantly struggling with the shadow of his own power. Joseph served as a stark reminder of the lasting impact of his legacy, a legacy that could either be one of terror or one of reluctant, difficult hope. In the end, Joseph, the dark reflection, didn't diminish Magneto, he refined him. He didn't tarnish his name irreparably. He forced Erik to polish it, to reclaim it, to define it on his own terms. It's a powerful thought, isn't it? That sometimes our greatest clarity, our strongest resolve, comes not from our triumphs, but from confronting the very parts of ourselves we'd rather forget, or from facing the distorted echoes of our own past. This struggle for self-definition against the backdrop of a dark reflection reminds us that identity is rarely static. It's a dynamic, evolving narrative, often challenged, often refined, and ultimately profoundly shaped by how we choose to respond to the shadows that pursue us. What are your thoughts on Magneto's journey of self-discovery through Joseph? Have you ever had to confront a past version of yourself, or a reflection you didn't recognize? Share your reflections in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this exploration of a complex character, consider liking this video and subscribing for more journeys into the depths of narrative and identity.